Please.
That point is not before this board tonight. So we need to...
No, the
let's
point
move on.
is saving money. The
called for
point
the order
is
of the day, Mr.
parsing
Day.
out money. And once again, I think it's very disingenuous to say that that was a more appropriate, if you are that strong, if you feel that strongly about opening up Town Hall, then that should have been brought up at that time. And it wasn't brought up at that time. Of course, you can say it wasn't anticipated, but you should have anticipated the fact that rehiring Nancy Kauffel full-time as opposed to the part-time was going to have ramifications on this budget. Yes, it is.
Now we have public comment, too.
No, it is. It is. It was brought up as far as the allocation of your taxpayer dollars. And that's, you cannot say that what you're saying is appropriate and what I'm saying is not appropriate. What we're speaking about is the allocation of taxpayer dollars. That's what I'm speaking about. And I don't begrudge anyone for rehiring Ms. Kauffel. I don't. The point is then you can't speak out of the other side of one's mouth and say that under those circumstances it's inappropriate to have Town Hall closed and for $10,000, and it was appropriate to rehire one person back from part-time to full-time. That's the point I am making. Just be careful what you say.
And public comment, yes, sir, and then we'll move on.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll try to be short, but it was mentioned earlier and suggested that monies have been saved by cutting other positions. And unless someone on this board is suggesting that the additional hours spent in those 2.5 hours by employees working would be ill-spent and nothing would be accomplished, then perhaps you should not waste, as you suggested, the $10,000. But since you're suggesting, Ms. Hudak, that the town needs the additional work, the additional efforts on behalf of those employees that are no longer with the town, you would, in essence, be adding those additional hours by keeping your current employees on another 2.5 hours. Between 5 and 8% additional hours spent to the tune of $10,000. And by the way, you also have elected officials that get a free ride for those 2.5 hours. You have elected officials that are being paid anyway, but that are working 2.5 hours less during the week. I'd like to see what that calculation comes to the loss of your Southeast residents. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. Yes, Abe. And then let's move on. Welcome,
Despite
thanks.
all the bickering going on, Councilman McCullough made a very, very salient point there. You're here to serve the community. I don't care if you're working from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Friday, but people do not get home until 7 or 8 p.m. if they're working in the city in White Plains. His point really overrides all this other bickering that's going on. Somebody should examine the feasibility of having Town Hall open at times that the people who work in the city of White Plains, Stamford, Connecticut, can get here. I hope what he said is really the most important thing and is really considered for the future more than this saving $10,000 or not.
Right,
Thanks, Abe.
and going forward,
Appreciate your eloquence. Let's talk about that at the work session on May 5. Yes,
well,
Bob.
we just have to wait until the next contract, the end of this contract with the employees, and that's something that we can negotiate in for them to work one day longer. That way it would give the opportunity for the public to be here, to come here when they're off.
Okay, let's move on. Item
another
16,
We
non-union.
have another.
Item 16, non-union employee
we
work
have another.
schedule. Excuse me. Let's move on. As we said, item 16, non-union employee work schedule.
Yeah, I know.
Bob, do you have something to
Right,
point to
well-
make about that?
Part of the, there has been an issue as far as comp time with some of our non-union employees who aren't entitled to overtime, cash overtime, building up excessive amounts of comp time. So I had I guess there was an agreement or the town policy for non-union employees that was from 1999, and it basically had fixed hours in there that said everyone had to work Monday through Friday, 8:30 or 4:30. We discussed, and I think we're kind of in agreement that we should have more ability to have flex hours for employees to serve the town. So I was with the town attorney, and we were going to go over that and try to change it. And then it came to my attention that there was actually a newer policy, which I didn't have, from the Town of Southeast Employee Handbook, which was adopted on March 15, 2001, and it basically takes care of all our needs, and it basically says that the normal hours of operation for full-time employees shall be 9 to 4:30. There's a little bit of a change here with the union contracts. It says the summer work schedule will be effective from July 4th through Labor Day, while the union contract says Memorial Day to Labor Day. So that's different. But it says the summer work schedule will be Monday through Friday, 8:45 to 4:30. However, the caveat is that it says the town board reserves the right to alter these hours of operation and/or approve all employee work schedules, except for otherwise where prohibited by applicable state or town law. So I think myself and the town attorney, in looking this over, basically realized that we do have the ability to have more flex hours for our non-union employees. So if there's a reason to have our code enforcement officer work a Saturday, he can work a Saturday without getting comp time or overtime. We just obviously can't go above the 40-hour work week. That's federal law. But there's no reason that we can't have our non-union employees work different hours. So I think it's already taken care of. It's just a matter of enforcing it, or having, letting our, if there's an incident for whatever reason, such as court for our code enforcement officers, they could work 12 p.m. until 8 o'clock at night instead of working 8:30 to 4:30, and then be on overtime after that to be at court, which could go until 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Agreed. And to manage the overtime issue, that's an excellent idea. We're going to try that. Is there further comment? Bob, did you have a motion pertinent to your...
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything we have to do. It's already been adopted, and
I agree.
so I think we could it's just a matter of, I wasn't aware of it, so it's just a matter of enforcing what's already in the policy.
Thanks, Councilman.
I think what would be important is that we send out letters to all of the employees and outline precisely what you're speaking about, Councilman McCullen, because the answer is I think the employees of the town need to know precisely what's going to occur in the future as regards their hours and any comp time that they're going to be or not be entitled to.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and there is a caveat in here as far as union employees, that the work schedule of employees covered by collective bargaining agreement shall be governed by the applicable collective bargaining agreement. So this is just for the non-union and appointed town employees.
Thank you. Item 17, RFPs for architect, legal services, and engineer. We're deferring the architect RFP, and I spoke with the architect today about it. We'll move on to the legal services and engineering RFPs. I make a motion that we issue an RFP which comprised of one line, all legal services provided to the town of Southeast in exchange for a salary to be determined by this board. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion defeated, 3 votes to 2. Then I make a second motion with respect to the request for proposal, which was circulated as an earlier draft. And with respect to the RFP language, let's see, it's dated January
and this one is-
2011.
This is just dated April.
Okay.
So this is the updated one.
Right.
Just getting it now?
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
getting
we're
it
just
now.
getting it now because I have had no
It's a little late.
comments on it from any of the board members except for Councilmember Cullen and Council members Cullen and Gross. But then
And
again,
me.
that is the usual way that
And
this
me.
occurs.
And the, with respect to this legal RFP proposal, I move that we correct the language to substitute the word Town of Southeast for Town of Patterson, which appears throughout. I move that...
Which doesn't appear throughout.
Pardon me, Councilwoman, I have the floor. Thank you. With respect to the salary noted, which is blank, on page 19 or thereabouts, I move we insert the language at a salary not to exceed that of the supervisor, annual compensation. Item 3, page 22, I move that we we strike the proximity requisite or the proximity component, which is 0 to 15 miles, weighted more heavily than an attorney living 16 to 45 miles, which is weighted more heavily than an attorney living at a distance greater than 45 miles. We strike that item from the analysis. We also strike any residency requirement that the town attorney reside in the town of Southeast, which is not the practice in other towns. And I move further that we adopt this to tonight as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we need a roll call vote?
Discussion.
Roll call vote.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
This is the first time I'm hearing anything from the supervisor regarding this RFP. It's just been reeled off. It is true. There is not one email that the supervisor can show me, although there's many emails that go back and forth between us, that incorporated anything that he just said. So therefore, reeling it off, I noticed that he just has it handwritten on the front of the January 2011 submission. So unfortunately, this is something that, quite frankly, should have been brought forth at the last work session, and it wasn't. I'm not in a position to, not a word of what you said, aside from the corrections, was ever stated. Nothing about the salary, nothing about any of the other items. So it's just a very simple request. The simple request is that what was just said, that is written in ink on the front of the RFP, be circulated amongst the members of this board, and then set down for another, right now, unfortunately, if it had been circulated this past week when we didn't have a meeting, we could have had a good solid 2 weeks to review this independently of the other board members, and if it had been brought forth before a work session, at a work session. And I think that's a fair statement. So what I would like to do is, I am not going to vote on this RFP proposal, which was just said very quickly by the supervisor. And, you know, things like, you know, at a salary not to exceed the supervisor's salary. Well, I got news for you. I don't know what the supervisor's salary might be next year, the year after. I also will tell you that it is my belief, just my understanding, that if there is a town attorney position, I believe by law that the person must live in the town. So that's something that I don't think, I'll defer to Mr. Stevens about that. So if it's if it's a town attorney, it means that the town attorney's got to live in the town. If it's someone who is just an independent contractor, then they wouldn't have to. So what I would request, and in hot anticipation that I'm not going to vote for this motion, that we now have the supervisor take the statements he just made, circulate them in an email so that we can consider them, and then we would put this back on for a work session. We can put it on for the next work session, and then put it on for the vote on the regular meeting. And then it can generate more comment. What we really need is more comment and more consensus than more condescension and disagreements. And that's what I would like to say about it.
Yeah, if I,
Further comment? Yes, Bob.
just as far as this whole town attorney issue, from what I understand, I remember the town attorney is appointed to a 2-year term. He was, his term expires at the end of this year. I think what we should do, and it was discussed, and I think that's what the state controller's report asked for, is just to have a job description for the town attorney. That way we know what he's supposed to do, what he's responsible for, and then we should go out for RFPs for the traffic tickets, for the sorority cases, and anything else that is not part of what the job description is. Because I don't believe we could break the contract right now with the town attorney until the end of the year anyway.
Well, we don't have
Unless
to break a
there's mal-
contract to circulate an RFP.
And then the other thing is, you know, I know we're speaking about this one motion. I just want to, after the motion is voted upon, just to ask the supervisor what happened with the architect RFP.
Further debate? This issue with the legal RFP has dragged on, and you're right, Ms. Hudak, but this is not the first time it's